Okay, well, I'm going to step back a little bit so you don't feel bad about, and I've got a mask on, so you can take yours off and not feel bad about, I know you're very public health conscious, so don't worry about, just go ahead and take your mask off and don't worry about infecting me because I got a mask on and I'll step back. Well, I am not an expert on the particular issues about involved with this race, so I'm going to leave that up to you to tell us what you think they are
Okay.
and what you might do differently than is being done. So go ahead, please.
Okay. Well, my name is Connie Trujillo, and I was born here in Las Vegas, and I graduated from Robertson in quite some time ago, in 91. And I attended the University of New Mexico for right out of high school and got a bachelor's in chemical engineering, and then worked for a while, got a master's in business administration along the way, and then I moved on to, at some point in there I had a couple of babies, and with my last pregnancy I had a midwife who took care of me, and she inspired me to pursue a career in midwifery. And at that point I went back to school and I got a nursing degree, and then continued and got my master's in nursing and became a nurse midwife. And at that point I was able to get a job back here in Las Vegas, so I moved back home, and I worked with a couple midwives here, joined a practice, and then eventually we ended up owning the practice, which was Alumbra Women's Health and Maternity Care. And that practice, that was in 2010. And then in 2016, they announced the closure of the OB department. And
At Alta Vista.
at Alta Vista,
Yeah.
yes.
This
and-
is where I first kind of became aware of you and your advocacy in connection with the maternity services at Alta Vista.
Yes. So when that happened, we tried to keep as many services available locally, and couldn't. Actually, we lasted about 15 months. So on June 1st of 2017, we closed Alumbra Women's Health, and I had to get a job out of town so that I could continue delivering babies or catching babies. And that's why,
what you call delivering babies, right?
yes,
That's the
I
term.
don't deliver them. The moms do. So
Right. Well, okay.
So, and that's kind of when I started to become pretty interested in the political aspects of the region. Just noticing how much influence or lack of influence our community leaders had in the process of the decision to discontinue such important services for the women in our community.
So what's the status now, by the way? I do know that Alta Vista declared bankruptcy not long ago. Does that affect the chances for us having maternity services here, or do we have?
So they were able to reopen the unit in October of 2017, and they've been running. I don't know if they've been at full capacity. I've heard that there are times that the unit is closed and patients have to go to Santa Fe, but they were able to restart it. But at that point I had already committed to working in a different place, so I was not able to go back.
I mean, different city or different unit?
A different city.
Oh.
Yeah, I moved. I haven't moved, but I do work out of Albuquerque now.
So you're commuting to Albuquerque?
Yes.
Oh. So in terms of, so you bring a particular interest in maternity services and hospital services, I guess, to the job you want here.
Well, access to health care.
Yeah.
I think we really need some people in the legislature who know something about healthcare, who know how the inner workings, what the inner workings of healthcare are. And as a practice owner, I know all I know a lot about the back end, what happens, with insurance and claims and credentialing and all of that, and then from from the front end of healthcare, the actual care, providing care as a care provider.
So
Sorry.
what do you have any specific ideas on what could be done in the legislature if things went the way, I mean, in the Senate, state Senate, if things went the way you wanted, to improve healthcare in a place like this, and particularly here? Is there any chance for Alta Vista surviving, or what's going on with that? And I ask as somebody who really doesn't know the answer to these questions. I'm just asking you to tell us.
Sure, and I don't really know the answer either, but I know that for-profit healthcare has played a really big role in our issues with access. The fact that the hospital is owned by a company that's out of Tennessee, I mean, it was when it was under Community Health Systems. I think it still is under Quorum. So we need to, the community needs to have more of a say in what's happening there. I feel like the hospital has very little accountability to the community right now. They have a board of trustees, but they only
A local board,
a
right?
local board, yes, and my understanding is that they only act as advisors to a certain extent, but they really don't make any decisions. And my opponent was actually on the board of trustees. I'm not sure if he still is, but he was on the board of trustees at the time of the OB department closure.
So do you think there's any chance of the hospital maybe becoming a community hospital again, like many of them used to be years ago, before the trend went to private ownership, I believe? Do you think there's any chance of that? Any way that could be helped out in the Senate?
Well, I think it could certainly be an option. I think concerns around the community are that, our community couldn't really commit to something like that financially because of the poverty in our community. But, Raton right now, which is within this district, has a state-run hospital. And I can't, I can't say that that's the best option, but I feel in times where we're losing really important services, we need a public health system that will step up and help in the communities that we need. I mean, we're seeing it right now with the COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of the state agencies have really stepped up and are working to help with issues, especially in the northwest corner of the state. And this is a big deal, but I feel like when we lost all the women's health services, that was a big deal too. And we really had no safety net.
Now, I assume that you're aware of this group called Alec, which I forget what they stand for, but I know they influence sort of a industry corporate group that influences a lot of legislative policy at state levels and maybe even local levels in some places. But do you know about them and what they might be doing to interfere here in New Mexico with some of these goals that you would like?
I don't. I'm not aware of them. Is it a dark money group?
No, I think it's pretty public,
Okay.
but I think they play a role. So I guess you'll be aware if you if you get elected.
Well, and that's another thing that I've really learned a lot about in this campaign is how much influence the big money has on campaigns and the candidates. My whole campaign is completely run on individual donations. I have not received a single large donation from any sort of endorsement, interest group, anything like that. And so, and it's because I'm brand new. And so I'm really dependent on the voters and the people in the community to support my campaign.
Speaking of which, that reminds me to ask you, do you have a website? Can you tell us what your website is and Facebook page if you have one?
Yes, so my website is ConnieTrujillo.com, and my Facebook page is the Campaign for Connie Trujillo. So
The campaign with the
it's just Campaign for
Okay.
Connie Trujillo.
Okay. By the way, here's an issue. Here's one little interesting issue to me that I do know something about. I mean, that I've heard about is the question of whether New Mexico legislators, senators, should be getting more of a salary. I understand that they get a fairly small per diem, and we're one of the few states that does it that way. And the argument, I think, is that we could get better quality people who could better afford to take off 30 days here and 30 days there from their job if they get paid
Yes.
while they're in the Senate and Congress, legislature. What do you think about that?
Well, I've actually have been meaning to look into that to see how many other states are in the same boat as we are. I am personally a person who's employed. I have a job. I have to work full time for us to be able to make it. I'm going to have 2 kids in college here real soon.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it makes it really hard for people like me to enter into politics, especially around the legislature, because we're going to be just getting paid, per day, per diem. But
So you're losing money from your real job, in other words.
yes, yeah. And I'm hoping that I don't lose benefits or have to take. I probably have to will take leave and that sort of thing. But I feel like we need to encourage more people who are out there in the workforce experiencing the struggles associated with raising families and having to go to work, to have a say in what we're doing at the legislature. So it's a hard question, and I'm sort of on the fence about it, but I do feel like maybe a little bit more of a salary maybe would help encourage more people to enter the legislature. I'm not opposed to career legislators also. I'm very much in support of term limits. So, because I feel like we need fresh, new ideas and people in our legislature. I, for one, want to be a more accessible representative of the people. And so, we'll have, we can do virtual town halls, as we've seen. Zoom has been really great for a lot of people to be able to reach out and talk to each other. So
Here's a question. As a new legislator, as a new senator, if you were to be elected, you would bring new ideas and a different perspective, as you've been telling us. The trade-off, what do you feel about the trade-off between that and having a senator who's got the contacts and got the ability to bring home the bacon, so to speak? What would you bring to the job that would make up for that ability?
well, I'm I'm pretty well versed in a lot of things, as you can tell from my two careers. One was in technology, one is in healthcare. I'm a professional problem solver, so the way I function with both careers, I collected information, we processed that information, and we created a plan. And that's how I intend to work in the legislature. I want to hear what people have to say. I want to know what the issues are. I want to find out what our possible solutions are and pick the best one. And I feel like we've become complacent. Our representation has become complacent at the Senate level. You can become very, very comfortable in a position if you've been there very long, for a very long time, and you can't really, you may not feel motivated to try out new things and explore new ideas.
One more question. Of course, the popular, issue and question on everybody's mind. I deal with this every day anyway. In the age of COVID, this business with the masks, and people, it seems like, starting to get tired of it. No matter what the health costs are, whatever the trends are, people just seem kind of fed up with it. Let's get back to life. What is your view on that as a person and as a professional, about that struggle between taking the health measures that are necessary and this, people who feel their rights are being violated and they're just had it with this thing and ready to get back to life at whatever the cost?
So again, just kind of leaning back on my whole engineering experience, we've been doing this sort of in my home with my daughter, and I have been collecting the data. So every day the COVID-19 numbers for the state come out, and we're keeping track of it. She's made a chart that we've shared with people on Facebook, and just looking at what the trends are, that sort of thing, and also just looking at the evidence. My idea around masks is that I am protecting other people, so I wear a mask to prevent exposure. Not my own exposure, but to keep myself from exposing other people, because I'm in healthcare. So I could potentially be exposed, and when I'm out in the community, I don't want to expose anybody. And so that's how I've been approaching it. I understand that people are frustrated, and masks aren't comfortable to wear. I mean, when I'm at work, if we're in a delivery, we have to wear the N95 masks, and those are really hard to breathe in. But it's really important for me to maintain safety and my patients to be protected as well. So that's how I've approached it, as a human being, or as an individual, and as a professional.
So as a matter of public policy, kind of thing you might have to deal with like this in the Senate, because this thing is likely to be with us for a while. How do you
Sure.
feel about striking that balance between enforcement, making rules that hopefully people would just, do on their own, but some people don't? What would you feel about the limits of enforcement of things like that?
As far as enforcement, I wouldn't say anything should be physical. I know that there's a lot of people getting so angry that they're trying to hurt other people because of the whole mask thing. I don't ever want it to get to that point where people are violent and there's any physical interaction. I think fines might be appropriate if necessary. I think also, just in terms of establishments, that what are the people in the establishments comfortable with? Do they feel comfortable with people being in their establishment with masks? And if you as an individual aren't comfortable being around people who don't have masks, then don't go to that place. You know.
So you're talking about not the rules set by that business, but your feeling about an individual business and what they're enforcing and what they're doing there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Publicly, I mean, I guess it just depends on the leaders of the communities. I mean, here in Las Vegas, we're supposed to be wearing masks in public. I don't know what it's been so crazy with the campaign. I haven't, and things change so quickly. I don't know what the current
Well, I can tell you that
enforcement measures are.
I don't know either. It's kind of hard to find out. I can tell you I've been personally pleased with the compliance I've seen around town among people, in stores and in the post office and so on. It seems like people are being very cooperative around here anyway. So that's somewhat
Yeah.
encouraging.
Yeah, and I was at Walmart today, and everyone I saw there had a mask on. So.
Well, one of the nice things about our area, I think, is that we have a little community spirit that way.
Yes. Yeah, and I that's, something I love about this area. I mean, I was born here. I went away for a while, but I came back, and I'm having a really hard time leaving. and I don't want to go, and so I've been trying to find some things to kind of keep me connected to the community. And this has been one thing for sure.
Okay, well, I thank you for your time and wish you luck. And if you want to state your website and Facebook page again.
Yes, so my website is ConnieTrujillo.com, and my Facebook page is Campaign for Connie Trujillo.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this.